Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to come to our last series of corporate presentations for the afternoon on our first day at the Deutsche Goldmesse. And our next speaker and presenter is Mr. Dan Wilton. He's the CEO of First Mining Gold Corp. And I have known Dan and this company for some time, and I know they have built a very attractive portfolio of projects in Canada, but I'm sure Mr. Wilton will go and describe them himself. I'm not going to steal his thunder, although he will do a much better job than me, that's for sure. So, Dan, please go ahead.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for joining us. It's my second time at this conference. Was here at the inaugural one last year, and it's nice to see growing crowds and lots more interest. So thank you very much. I'm Dan Wilton. I'm the CEO of First Mining Gold. We'll talk a little bit about the portfolio of projects that we're advancing. I am going to make, here we are, a couple of forward-looking statements. So First Mining has ownership of two world-class multi-million ounce gold projects in Canada in outstanding jurisdictions. The first is our Springpole gold project, which is located about 100 kilometers from Red Lake, Ontario. One of the largest undeveloped gold projects, 5 million ounce resource, and is well advanced in the environmental assessment process and about 70% through a feasibility study. And earlier this year, we also consolidated 100% ownership of the Duparquet project in Quebec, which is located about 40 kilometers from Rouyn-Noranda in the middle of the Abitibi Gold Belt. And this is a past-producing gold mine that has had a lot of work done on it from 2008 to 2014 and has largely been forgotten. So our goal is to surface that value for the benefit of our shareholders. We have a number of other projects and JV interests as we've worked on our portfolio over the last 3 years. Those provide us with real upside opportunity, but also projects and ownership interests that we can sell in order to give us the cash to keep moving our other projects forward. And a significant royalty portfolio falls into that category as well. So just to give a bit of a sense of where our projects are, they are all in Canada. And you can see the locations here, a bit of a cluster in Ontario, and then again, Duparquet and the other associated projects in Quebec. Currently sitting today with about 800 million shares outstanding, trading at about 20 cents Canadian, which is 160 million Canadian market cap. But important in that is cash and marketable securities, our project interests, and future cash and share payments that total about $60 million. So today, you're getting our 13 million ounces of gold resource, really concentrated in two projects, for a value of 100 million Canadian. Today, we'll call that 74 million US, exceptional value on a per ounce basis. Our shareholder base is largely retail, although significant shareholding from First Majestic Silver. And those of you who don't know our company, it was founded by Keith Neumeyer, who's the founder and CEO of First Majestic, and obviously well known amongst mining shareholding circles in Germany for sure. This place has a very soft spot in Keith's heart. Analyst coverage, we recently have added the first analyst coverage from a bank, from Laurentian Bank Securities. Jacques Wortman initiated on First Mining with an 80-cent target price a few weeks ago. So real conviction, I think, with some of our partners there moving forward. So as we think about these projects that we have, and you look at Springpole and Duparquet, we are talking about two world-class, globally significant gold deposits in Canada. We would be two of the top 15. And when you look at this list and really drill down into the projects that are on this list, what is significant to take away from this is these are projects that get built. You know, in this list, you have Côté, Blackwater, Greenstone, Back River, and Valentine, all in construction right now. So you fast forward 2 or 3 years, and we are going to hold two of the 10 largest undeveloped gold projects in Canada. And I think certainly with Springpole, as you fast forward to some of the real milestones that we'll talk about, we think we're going to have these projects ready to go at a time when there is going to be a real scarcity of projects to develop in Canada. Exceptional value. You heard in the panel here just recently that question of, do I invest pre-resource? Do I buy projects with resources? Do I buy producers? I think when we think about value in First Mining Gold, it is the value of well-defined ounces in the ground in great jurisdictions. That's what we have here, and it's trading at a 60% discount to where our peers trade. You see we're trading at about $8 an ounce versus our developer peers at 43. That would be an 80-something% discount. So just in reversion to the mean, if we trade like our peers, there's multiple times return on our current share price that's possible. I've been a mining corporate finance professional for 30 years, had an active M&A practice for a lot of that. Generally, you would see developers trade historically, advanced stage developers at that 0.5 to 0.7 times your net asset value. We're in a really depressed time right now, particularly for developers, where investors are running away from capital risk. And it's one of the overhangs on First Mining. Springpole is a big project. Our pre-feasibility study had it at about a $718 million US capital. Seems like a lot for a company with 160 million market cap, but I think the important thing is we have the team, and I think if we're able to monetize some of the other portfolio assets we have, we'll have the capital to do the work to get these projects to those milestones without significant equity dilution. And I think that's really important. So we're in what we used to, when I was a private equity investor, we used to call the valley of death in the Lassonde curve, where you come off discovery and you're in the hard part where you do all the hard work to turn a deposit into a mine. But I think the further you are advanced on that, the closer you are to that really significant uptick. So where we are right now with First Mining, we have really significant milestones coming in the next 2 to 3 years that should unlock all of this value that we're looking at here. ESG is central to our business. When we talk about ESG, our business is environmental permitting and securing social license, working with local communities. And I think it's something that we've done a lot of work on over the last couple of years, and some things we're very proud of that for a mining company, we have 38% of our employees are women, which I think is rare. Now 23% of our employees are Indigenous, which is something that we're proud of and continue to look to grow. So ESG is very central to our business. I won't spend too much time on Springpole, only just to kind of give a bit of an orientation. It's 100 kilometers from Red Lake, Ontario. One of few projects in the world that can produce more than 300,000 ounces a year. That puts it in a very rare group, and I think what we would call globally significant assets. So sitting today with our pre-feasibility study done in January 2021, post-tax NPV at about $1 billion US. The capital cost of that was $718 million US. We expect that's going to go up. But as we've gone through the feasibility process, it's not all negatives. We're finding some positive trade-offs as well. So I think as we come out with the next economic study, it's still going to demonstrate a big and robust project. But importantly, this is a tier 1 mining jurisdiction. We're right in between two mining camps where they've been mining since the 1930s at Red Lake and Pickle Lake. And again, I think this is a project that has real strategic value as we move it forward and de-risk it. But importantly, in addition to the 5 million ounces that are there, over the last couple of years, we have consolidated a regional exploration package, land package around the project. It's now greater than 70,000 hectares. And we had our first real season of regional exploration this year, flew 3,800 line kilometers of geophysics, which that's all being processed right now. The first district scale geophysical survey in this Birch-Uchi greenstone belt. You can see the number of targets that we have there in terms of those are areas that we have soil sampling, we have geophysical coverage, we have grab samples. And a number of those projects with historic drilling in them, some of them 10 to 20,000 meters of drilling in them. So this is far from real greenfield stuff, but I think the leverage that we have to discovery with a project that's in advanced permitting is exceptional. The next million ounces that we find here is going to make a big difference, and we're confident of being able to find that. So lots of catalysts coming up with Springpole. Importantly, we're in the environmental assessment process. You can go on our website and invite all of you to read the 10,000-page draft environmental assessment document. It tells you all about the project, and I think it answers a lot of questions. Importantly, we should be able to talk about exploration coming forward, and again, a technical and project update in 2023, driving toward what's probably a pre-feasibility study in 23, submitting our final environmental assessment mid-24, feasibility study mid to end of 24, and environmental assessment approval in 25. And while we're going through all of this process, the Indigenous communities around the Springpole project are also scoping their own assessment process right now, and we're looking forward to working with the communities as they go through that process. And Duparquet, this again was a project that First Mining had owned 10% of through our acquisition of Clifton Star, which we bought in 2016. This is a project that was in 2008, 2009, it was going to be the next Canadian Malartic, the next Osisko, right? 3 past producing mines that were mined underground, had a disseminated halo of mineralization around the old underground workings that was not well understood. So Clifton and then Osisko, and then Clifton again, drilled in total 270,000 meters in about 3.5 kilometers of strike length on this deposit in 2008 to 2014. So recent drilling. They did a very comprehensive metallurgical program. The deposit's refractory, so it needs some secondary processing. They had studied pressure oxidation, which got recoveries in the low to mid 90s. And importantly, I think defined a very interesting project at a tough time economically with a 90-cent Canadian dollar and a $1,300 gold price. So $1,400 Canadian gold versus today, that would be $2,200 Canadian gold price. So yes, costs will have changed, but I think our goal is to take this project through an updated economic study over the course of the next year and really define what we see as the opportunity here, which we think is exceptional, not just for the 5 million ounce resource that we have at the deposit right now. I'll show you in a second, but 4 million ounces sitting in an open pit at about 1.5 grams. So this would be one of the higher grade open pit deposits in Canada, but sitting right in the middle of the Abitibi. You've got every mining service provider that you could ever want in Timmins and in Rouyn-Noranda, which is 100 kilometers and 40 kilometers from the project. Fantastic location. And the deposit is open at depth. It's open along strike. And so we really want to get some exploration drills turning to demonstrate again here that 5 million ounces is the starting point. But one of the really interesting things about Duparquet, and you won't be able to read any of this up here, it's pretty small, but as we were updating the resource, we put out an updated resource on it in September. One of the things that we really focused in on is that there is a higher grade, smaller tonnage starter pit opportunity at Duparquet. You see here at a cutoff grade of 0.7, you've got 23 million tons of inferred resource at greater than 2 grams. We think there is a greater than 2 gram starter open pit here that can show a very, very robust, moderately low capital startup opportunity. So that's really what we want to scope in our PEA coming out. And importantly here, again, you can see the sort of the mineral tenure that we have. It doesn't really jump out, but this project was mined down to about 500 meters. There's only a handful of drill holes that go deeper than that, many of which have hit mineralization. So, the real deposits in the Abitibi start at about 1,000 meters down. So lots of underground exploration opportunity. And if any of you follow Agnico, Yamana, and the development of Canadian Malartic, the next stage of evolution there is a large-scale bulk tonnage underground mine, and we think we have every potential to see that develop here as well. So very interesting. And on top of that, we do have this other land package beside it that has the Pitt and Duquesne projects. About 1 million ounces of resource, more traditional narrow vein, high grade. But I think it could be a really interesting satellite higher grade feed potentially into Duparquet. So lots to still figure out in this project. And importantly, you know, there is, it's the past producing mine. There is a roaster that's still on site. There is an environmental legacy that we do need to deal with. And in doing that, you know, us starting with our first and best foot forward on environmental baseline work, working with the communities and the regulators to understand a game plan that can move that forward, is really our first priority. We have great reception from the regulators in Quebec so far. Update an economic study this year. We're right now continuing to compile exploration data and really ultimately want to get drills turning there as quickly as we can to demonstrate some of the growth potential. Don't spend too much time on this, only to say, you know, if we get back up to where developers should be trading, this is 4 or 5 times our share price in terms of fundamental value. And just with the portfolio of other assets that we have, important takeaway from this is that we've had our partners invest probably $70 million in these portfolio projects over the last 3 years to advance them. They've made great discoveries, and all of those interests have left us with, I think, really good opportunities to have projects that continue to advance that we don't need to put capital into, but we still have lots of upside opportunity here. So with that, I think we've hit on all the highlights and have a couple of minutes for questions if anyone would have any questions. Yes, sir.
What will be the priority of development then? Duparquet or the Springpole, or both together?
It's both together. I think Springpole in its process, in the EA process, is pretty defined. So it kind of needs to run through that process. You know, we have a team well-resourced to do that. And really getting to the end of the environmental assessment is the priority for us, because that's the point where people can no longer say that you'll never get this project permitted. So, but I think where Duparquet gives us an opportunity to do is scope a very different type of project that can have lower capital, that can be higher grade, higher margin, and something that in a better market is going to give us an opportunity to potentially develop ourselves.
Because it seems to me that it's Duparquet, if you deal with an environmental issue, that it's easier to get some cash flow from there.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I think, you know, the really important point is that the only way the environmental issue gets dealt with is through the development of a mine. And we recognize that, and the regulators recognize that. And it's very similar to another project that Steve Lyons, our VP Environment and Community Relations, worked on in Ontario at Hard Rock. Very similar situations. But Steve and our team took that project from scoping study to construction permits. So we think there's an opportunity there for sure at Duparquet.
And the dam builder in Springpole will be still the German company?
You got to wait till we get to the kind of the contracting on that part, but they certainly have been interested, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. And if you're looking for any more information, www.firstmininggold.com.